Can we just go through those really quick? And,
sure.
And love to get your view of where the race is. And let's just start with Nevada.
Yeah. It's the hardest one. The Trump people think they're going to win it, and the Democrats think they're going to win it. Abortion, unions, the ghost of Harry Reid, which they still cite. So I would say there's consensus amongst my sources that of the 7 states, it's Harris's best. But I wouldn't be surprised if Trump won it. Economy's horrible. Inflation's been horrible. Housing's horrible. He's got, of course, a presence in Clark County, a lot of rural vote. So it's her best of the 7.
Well, he's taken Elko. We know that.
Yes, Elko is his.
But the change in, Clark County is very, very heavily Hispanic now. Yeah. And the change in voting patterns of Hispanic voters, or at least what we think is the change, that's kind of what they're banking on.
They are, and they're banking on the economy. And she's not, she's a Westerner, right? But people there don't like Californians. Typically there's
for good reason.
Yeah. So again, I think it's right that it's his least likely of the 7, but there are reasons to think he could win it. And the biggest thing she has going for is probably the unions.
Yeah.
And whether that's a union and a location where the gap between the leadership and the rank and file is smaller. There's reason to believe that she'll do well.
Right. Unite here and the big casino workers unions.
Yeah. So I would say, again, her best state, but a state Trump can still win.
Okay. Let's move. New Mexico?
No, Arizona. New Mexico is blue. Arizona is probably Trump's best of the 7. If there's a state she'll give up on, and I don't think she will because she's got so much money and there's only 7 and she's got to fly out west.
Can I ask you to pause? Can you summarize where the money stands as of right now? Relative.
So originally, her money advantage, the Democrats' money advantage early on when Trump was having trouble raising money was significant. Then they had a money advantage, but not dispositive. It's now potentially dispositive. Not so much for the ads, although that matters too, but for organizing. She's raised $1 billion since she got in the race. That's extraordinary. And that doesn't include the outside money. That's not directly tied.
She's raised $1 billion?
Yeah, since she got in the race. She's raised more for her campaign and for the party committees that she controls than Trump has raised the whole campaign. So typically when you're outraised, as Trump said in 16, they have enough to win. They won't have as much money, but they'll have enough to win. It may be he doesn't. I'm not saying for sure, but her financial advantage over the last 3 weeks is considerable.
Where's all that money coming from?
Grassroots and rich people. One of the biggest mysteries in politics for the last 20 years has been Democrats' capacity to raise big money online compared to Republicans. Jamie Harrison, who's now chair of the Democratic Party, ran against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. No chance to win. Not a particularly good candidate. Nice guy, but not somebody people thought, I'll give money because I'll be president someday. He raised like $110 million. That's more than Marco Rubio, who should be a good web fundraiser, social media fundraiser, raised when he ran for president. They just are great at raising money from small dollar donors. Part of it was they started earlier with the thing Act Blue, but it doesn't explain it. And I talk to people about it all the time. I can't explain it. But that's a big part of why Trump's being outraged. And if they hadn't kept indicting him, it'd be even more disparate. And then there's people writing big checks.
Wait, if they hadn't kept indicting him, he wouldn't have raised as much money.
Trump raised, a lot of his online money in the wake of all the legal stuff, like literally on the days of indictments, the days of bookings, court dates. That was a great equalizer for him to raise more money. But he's badly outraised. But again, I don't think it's dispositive. It might be dispositive, but I don't think it will be. I think Trump has just enough.
And the Democratic Party has rich people.
So does the Republican Party. The big disparity is not the rich people. The big disparity is the small dollars.
Interesting.
There's some disparity, right? There's 3 kinds of money. There's small dollars, social media and online. There's bundlers, people writing checks of, $3,900 or whatever it is now. And then there's people writing super PAC checks for, $10 million or, less. Trump is doing is I think being outraised in all three categories is my guess. But I think the biggest discrepancy is the one that's the most valuable, which is the low dollars, because it's people can continue to give to you.
And for that money, the Harris campaign gets what?
More TV ads, more digital ads, more field organizers, more offices, more get out the vote operations, more of
lawn signs. I've noticed
more lawn signs, and more surrogate travel. Just more of all the stuff you can spend money on. And again, no one's criticizing their operation in terms of how they're going about turning people out, voting early, voting by mail, and then on election day getting people to the polls. Their team, led by the woman who's running the campaign, Jen O'Malley Dillon, who's an organizer by trade, that's an advantage. So in other words, more money spent wisely. It's a big advantage.
So you think Trump probably does have an advantage in Arizona?
Yes. It's his best, just as the Silver State is her best of the 7. My sources agree that Arizona is his best of the 7.
All right, let's move east.
Georgia, it's a tougher one. Trump is ahead. Trump is favored. I think if Georgia would be the 5th or 6th state she won if she's doing really well. In other words, if she wins Georgia, it means she's going to win all the Great Lakes states and probably the Silver State as well. So it's probably Trump's 3rd best of them, probably, and I'd make him the favorite there. And my Democratic sources today would make him the favorite there as well.
Okay.
There is a reality of Democratic politics in southern states, which is if you can increase the percentage of the vote that comes from black vote, which is called the contribution to the vote. So what percentage of the number of people who vote are black, and she can get her numbers back up to where Democrats typically are, 2 big ifs, she'll win. But Trump is doing well with the young black men there, and the normal way he wins states, running up in exurbs in rural areas. All of the 7 states have a pro-choice energy. In the 2 western states, there's ballot measures that will help there. There aren't in the 5 others, but Georgia, the Atlanta metro area is very pro-choice. A lot of suburban women, so some combination of her swelling black vote, holding her own with black vote, and suburban voters, particularly women, she could win it. But Trump is the favorite there.
Okay, so we've named 3 so far.
North Carolina. It's funny. The vice president herself, I'm told, and a lot of her aides have been very bullish on North Carolina as the linchpin for replacing Pennsylvania if they lose Pennsylvania. I have one Republican source who I trust immensely regarding North Carolina who says no way Trump loses it. So the storm is a variable. No way to know who that helps or hurt. The governor's race is a bit of a variable, but my sources now, I trust the ones who say Trump is likely to win North Carolina, but the vice president's put a ton of time in there, and I think she'll continue to because they need a hedge against losing Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania has more electoral votes, so if it's just a swap, if Trump wins the 3 Sunbelt states and Pennsylvania, and she wins North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Michigan, she loses. So if she wins Michigan and Wisconsin and North Carolina, but loses Pennsylvania, she needs one of the other 3 Sunbelt states. But North Carolina is the largest and same as Georgia, same number, but that's kind of the linchpin for them. So that's the biggest mystery. Democrats are very bullish on it. Republicans believe that it'll be Trump's in the end.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about Wisconsin?
Was considered her best of the 7 until she started to slip there in the last couple weeks. And it's always been a close state. Trump had his convention there, a lot of rural vote there, a lot of the social issues cut for Trump there, less pro-choice state than some of the others. So I would say if you take the combination of my sources, it's a slight favorite to Harris. But if Trump's running the rest of the table, he'll win Wisconsin.
I thought the whole point of Tim Walz was to shore up support in a place like Wisconsin.
Running mates really don't make a difference.
Yeah.
They just don't. As long as you pick someone who the public says is ready to be president, it's really very marginal.
That leaves Michigan.
So it's a little bit of a cross current there because it's kind of the bluest of the 7 states. But she's got a problem with labor. She's got a problem with black men. She's got a problem with Arab American and Muslim American voters. And she's not gone there until recently, just the last couple of days, and done the things that the locals there demand. Like the local Democrats say, you have to go to union halls. You have to be doing, black barbershops. You have to be figuring out how to make peace with the Arab American and Muslim American. So she's done those things in the last few days. I would say it's a must-win for her. It's not a must-win for Trump, but I'd make it at this point, her, just like in Wisconsin, a mild favorite.
And finally, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So it is said the winner of Pennsylvania will win.
It's said by everyone all the time.
Yeah, it's almost certainly true. I'm going to do a 2-hour show called It's All About Pennsylvania because it sort of is. Now, I say Trump can win without Pennsylvania, and she can win without Pennsylvania, and it's not far-fetched. They both have reasonable paths without it. So people shouldn't say it's all about it. But certainly the winner of Pennsylvania, is, as a matter of demographics and electoral college math, is in the driver's seat. The other person has to circumvent conventional wisdom about where these states are to make up for the loss of Pennsylvania. And Trump is ahead, and he's been ahead for a while. Now, ahead within the margin of error. But if you're consistently ahead, even within the margin of error, no one thinks these states are going to be won by 7 points. So she's got demographic problems there. Changing her position on fracking was absolutely essential. Whether people believed it or not, she couldn't have won being against fracking. It's not as big a deal throughout the state as people think, but in parts of the state, it's a very big deal. So I make Trump the favorite there, as do most of my Democratic sources, but she's spending an unprecedented amount of money. She'll continue to work it there. Has a Democratic governor. It has 2 Democratic senators. It's more of a blue state in terms of statewide office than a red state. Trump won it once and lost it once, but he's showing strength there with white working class voters, with older voters, with black men, with the Hispanics suburbs around Philly. So that's a place, because Biden was born in Pennsylvania and so associated with it. That's a place where trading out Biden for Harris was probably a downgrade for them. That Biden, at least on paper, had a better chance than she does.
Well, he's, of course, a loyal son of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, he had his own problems, though. They've also not been a super big state about electing women to statewide office compared to some other states for whatever reason. And she's a California liberal. One of the things I don't think we've discussed in our brief talk so far is she's really liberal, right? She's really liberal. She's culturally liberal. She's economically liberal. And she's not done a Sister Souljah. She's not fleshed out a portrait of who she is, except for saying she's a capitalist in a way that has resonated with a lot of these undecided voters. And you see that in Pennsylvania as much as anywhere else. They see her for what she is, and that's not really what Pennsylvania is. Their governor is a pretty moderate Democrat.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.